What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers, and join me here today to talk about NFL draft prospect Quinn Ewers, of course, the quarterback by way of the Texas Longhorns. Help me talk about him, look at his game film, talk about what we like, what he can improve on. Of course, is our resident Texas fan here on the program, Jay McLovin, my brother from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. Jay, first and foremost, hope you had a good holidays with Thanksgiving this past week. And I know you are getting pumped, getting excited to talk about Quinn Ewers, the guy who's going to be, hopefully for your case, leading your team to their first ever SEC championship game against Georgia this upcoming week. So it's going to be a crazy weekend here in college football. We did a bunch of bowl game previews. Go check those out. But we are going to look at Mr. Quinn Ewers today. Jay, what do you like about your quarterback?
Yeah, Quinn Ewers he's an interesting specimen when it comes to trying to figure out where he's going to get drafted and things of that nature. The guy's 6'2", 210, probably just an average size and build for a quarterback. I mean, he's not, super tall, obviously not short. He's just kind of like that middle of the road kind of guy, but that's fine. I mean, he's a prototypical guy for a college quarterback and NFL quarterback at that point even. In terms of quarterbacks in this class, it's a little bit of a weakened class. I think Shedeur Sanders is expected to go at the top spot, and I think Cam Ward is right behind him. And obviously, Travis Hunter is at the number one spot, going to probably get drafted. But in terms of quarterbacks, you're probably looking at Shedeur, Cam, that kid out of what is it? I think it's Oregon.
Oh, Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, thank you. Nussmeier. That's what I was.
Garrett Nussmeier at LSU.
Man, yeah, his name was in my head, but I couldn't get it out. But then, you look at Quinn Ewers, and he kind of comes in right there at number 5 in the QB class. So, again, it's a weekend class. I don't expect before the Georgia – it's kind of a weird thing because before the Georgia game, he was Heisman hopeful, projected, first-round guy. All these accolades were coming towards him. He was performing well. And then the Georgia game happened. And Nick Sarkisian really, kind of screwed his quarterback and his really team as a whole over because if you watch that game, even though they lost by 15, that game was far apart. I mean, Texas was never really even in it. I mean, they were not prepared for that game. Defensively, they were not prepared. Offensively, they were not prepared. And I think ultimately, Sarkisian kind of put Ewers in a bad spot. And really, and then they kind of get towards that second half, going into before they go into halftime. Then it switches over to Archie Manning, and then, third quarter he comes back to Ewers. And just, in all honesty, I love my Texas Longhorns, but that was just a really piss-poor preparation week. And it was a really piss-poor decision-making by Sarkisian. It really put Ewers and company in just a really bad spot when you're getting ready to come up with this draft. Now, I will tell you, let's let some of the strengths about Quentin, and then we'll talk about some of his weaknesses. Obviously, the guy ran a 4.7440, so he's not in any jeopardy of becoming a running back like Jalen Hurts was. He can make all the throws all over the field. He's got a great arm, right? Good, strong arm. He can make it left, right, slot, slants, posts, you name it. The guy can make the deep shots, whatever. He can make all the throws. Now, where kind of gets a little crazy for me is I feel like even though he's got this great arm talent, he struggles with consistency and mechanical issues. What I mean by mechanical issues is he has a sidearm release. In a lot of ways, he throws a little bit like Patrick Mahomes. The only thing that Patrick Mahomes does better than Quentin Ewers is when he's off balance or off his platform and he's having to shift and throw left or right off balance, then his accuracy really kind of goes into the toilet. And I think you saw a little bit of that in the Georgia game where the interceptions kind of came in. So he definitely is going to have to work on his mechanical issues when throwing off balance. He's going to have to work on his decision-making. He's got a great sidearm throw. And like I said, in a lot of ways, it's similar to Patrick Mahomes, but he's a prototypical pocket passer. Now, he can elude, he can evade, but don't expect this guy to be like, Josh Allen or something where he can run the ball and do those kind of things. That's just really not who he is. He's more of your prototypical pocket passer. He still needs to work on reading the defenses, though. I kind of feel like that's still kind of an issue with him. So those are just some of the issues. I think he's a little slow going through some of his reads, which I think really kind of hurt him, especially like you said in that Georgia game. He's a little slow going through his progressions. So those are some things that he's going to have to really work on in terms of developmental stages. And I think if you can get a team that doesn't need a starter right away, maybe, a team like the Jets, maybe a team like I'm just going to use the Jets as an example. There's other teams out there. You can probably throw even the Jaguars in there. You may be able to throw the Panthers in there and such. They have that, like they had I think Panthers got Dalton and so maybe throw them in Vegas.
Bryce Young,
Somewhere where he can watch a professional quarterback and how he prepares for the game, how he does the game, where he can kind of still continue to develop really the decision-making, watching game film, how to prepare, how to break down. There's a lot of things that he still needs to grow into to become that quarterback. But this is a guy that is a true experiment, right? I mean, I'm not talking Trey Lance where the guy just has a lot of fast, great ability, but then stinks it up. No, this guy is more balanced, right? He's not one great at everything, but he's a good balanced quarterback that if you put him in the right system that can allow him to develop his decision-making, his reading, just get all the little nuances down. And if you can put him in that kind of situation, then this guy could be a really solid quarterback in the NFL. And so for those reasons, because I do think he needs more time to mature, more time to develop, I got him kind of going in the late rounds. Like I said, I think the Jets, the Rams would be another good spot because I don't think the Rams are necessarily sold on Stetson Bennett. And I think that you put a guy like Quinn Ewers in a Sean McVay run system, and I think there's good developmental side out there. This guy can really take off, right? I mean, the Rams got weapons. They got good coaching. That would be a great spot for him to land. I would probably say if I'm looking at Quinn Ewers getting drafted in this specific draft class, I would say this is probably going to be the fifth one. I think we get 3 taken in the first round, which kind of leaves him as the 4th and 5th guys left to be drafted. So I would probably put that I'd probably say he gets drafted somewhere around the 3rd or 4th round. I think he'll be a 3rd or 4th round pick, and I think he's going to probably go to, I would say either the Jets, Rams. I don't think he's going to put the Raiders. I can't put the Raiders in there because, quite honestly, I think the Raiders go after Cam Ward in the first round, which would then negate their reasoning for a quarterback. So I look at more a team like the Jets, the Rams, maybe teams that aren't going to go after Ewers in the first initial couple rounds because they want to solidify other areas because they probably don't think that Ewers is going to come off the board that fast. So with that being said, I think Ewers is going to slide down because of the lack of need for him at this point in the earlier rounds wouldn't make sense. So I think 3rd or 4th round is probably where you're going to slot him in at. And I think he's either going to go to one of 3 teams. I think the Jets, the Rams. I don't know what that 3rd team was. I'm going to say Jets and the Rams for right now. I would say the Giants, but the Giants are picking, I think, like number 2s. I think the Giants are going to go after a Jalen Milroe or somebody of that nature. So I think it's going to be one of those teams that has an older quarterback that's getting ready to leave the game, and they need to start looking at the future. Geno Smith in Seattle might not even be a bad spot for him. But, so I would probably say Seattle, Jets, Rams, guys with older existing quarterbacks that are looking to rebuild. Quinn Ewers would be great for that rebuild. So that's where I got it.
Yeah. I mean, before the season, he was heralded as, above, you could say, Cam Ward. You could say he was maybe even a top 3 quarterback prior to this season. I mean, because that he was a top recruit coming into college, and unfortunately, he's been hit by the injury bug a little bit. That's another kind of a downside where I could see he could slip is he has been hurt. Especially this year, he has been banged up more so than not. So that's why we've seen Arch Manning get a little bit of playtime more so than not. So I think that will kind of cause him to slide a little bit. But like you said, Jay, there's a lot of teams who the ones that need a quarterback are going to get, top 5 picks or whatnot, right? Like you said, the Raiders are going to get a quarterback. Might be Sanders, might be Ward. We're just assuming. The Giants desperately need one. There's a couple teams out there that could get, fringe starters in terms of they could start or they could be a backup. You mentioned Seattle, which is a good one. Some other teams that could maybe go after them. We know Cleveland is in need of some help. Indianapolis, you can maybe, slide Joe Flacco out of there. He might retire, have someone else behind Anthony Richardson, maybe see how that goes. maybe some other teams like you mentioned the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is out for the rest of the year now. Just came out. So, I mean, they need some help behind him. So, I mean, there's a couple of teams that need good quality quarterbacks. They might not need them as desperately as others, but I think that's kind of where Quinn slides in here. Because like you said, prior to the Georgia game, everyone was like, all right, this is moment, right? Let's see what you can do against Georgia. And well, Georgia looked good. That's I don't know if I'd say that's the best Georgia's looked this year, but it might be in that week, what was it, week 6, week 7 meeting. So luckily, he gets the chance to rewrite history here.
Yeah, he does.
And we're filming this right now. It's a Thursday, December 5th. So the game has not been played yet, so we don't know how it's going to look. We're just assuming. If he does well, that could bump up his draft stock a little bit. Maybe move him above somebody. If he does poorly, I don't think it's going to affect him too much because I still think that teams are going to look at the talent he has and go off of that. But it is a factor, though, is how you play well in big games. Do you show up or do you just kind of fade away? We'll see how he does. He's lucky. He gets a second shot at this. So, and this one means even more than a regular season meeting. So we'll see how he does. But what I like about Quinn is he's got a absolute cannon attached to his arm. I mean, he can throw it 50, 60 yards with ease, man. But it's not perfect quite yet, right? He's not the perfect quarterback. He's got some flaws, but that arm strength, you got to have that in the league. He's got, like I say, he's got good mobility. He's not like a statue. He can move around if he needs to, but I think that where he needs to go needs to kind of be more fit to him. He needs to go to a certain scheme. If he goes somewhere pretty heavy with like play actions and whatnot, and RPOs, I think he could work well there. We know how well Texas is doing this year with Sarkisian and that offense. So if you can have an offense that has a lot of movement around it to kind of disguise his I'm gonna say he's not just a brick wall out there. He can move, but he's not. If there is trouble, sometimes he won't run, sometimes he will. Right? Yeah. He's not like a Shadur Sanders or someone who they can run if they need to. They can elude the pocket with quicker feet than Quinn does. And that's also something too with Quinn. Sometimes you see his footwork isn't the greatest, which, look, man, just go into the lab, keep training, and you can fix bad footwork. You can fix that with ease. Just keep training. Go on the practice field. You don't even need to throw the ball, for God's sake. Just work on your footwork. Just mock like you're throwing the ball. And you can fix some of that. And that's what causes erratic throws. That's what causes throws that are above the head, that go at your shoelaces, that go far left, far right. That's how you fix that. But when Quinn is on, Jay, when he's hitting on all cylinders, it's hard to stop him.
Right.
It's just that you need to see a little bit more out of that. And that's why I feel that he is, he's not the number one true quarterback in this class. But he does show flashes of that, from time to time. Just kind of depends on, on the game. But overall, though, my final thoughts, and I'll give you your final thoughts in a minute here. I think that Quinn Ewers is a very good quarterback. I've always liked his style of play. Make sure, he is just gets him in the right system, I think. And I think that, with the right coaching, with the right team around him, either when he gets drafted or when they build through free agency or whatnot, I think he could do some work. Do you think he's going to be a starter as a rookie, Jay? Do you think he's going to sit a year, if not more?
I think it depends on the situation he goes to. If he goes to a team, let's say like the Panthers, who basically have nothing, because Dalton's hurt right now, and so. Then I think he probably gets a jump start right away. I don't know if he becomes the starter right away, but I think at some point in the season, Bryce Young's going to screw up. Somebody's going to screw up, and I think he gets his shot there. If he goes to a place like, let's say, the Rams, unless or Gino or the Seattle with Gino, unless those guys get hurt, then he's going to ride the pine for a few years.
And look, it's not a bad thing to sit the bench. I know that everyone has said it. It's kind of been the thing here more so recently than not. especially with quarterbacks. We see quarterbacks get thrown into something and they just falter early on, right? I mean, Anthony Richardson, he came in, was it 3 or 4 games? He got hurt, missed the whole season, most of the season last year. He's came back, but still he missed some time. You look at Bryce Young, he was benched earlier this year just for poor playing. He has looked great. He has looked better, though, since he came back. I will say that. He has looked better, so that's good for Carolina fans. But, I mean, there's a lot of teams that could use some help, but I still think he's a really good prospect, someone to look out for sure. And like I say, he's got that great arm, so we'll see if someone wants to take a flyer on him. Jay, what's your final thoughts on Quinn Ewers?
Yeah, I just, the one thing I want to point out, and I said this at the very beginning, is that Quinn Ewers' draft status makes him almost like a bit of a unicorn. And the reason why I say that is, before the Georgia game, like I said, he was projected first rounder. We're looking at Heisman hopefuls. Georgia game comes in. Now now we're talking 3rd, 4th round, possibly. But here's the thing. There is no real way to predict where Quinn Ewers is going to go right now as we speak, because he has a flash of brilliance, has a flash of crap. He comes back, he takes over again, and he's got them guys. He took out Texas A&M, he took out Michigan. I mean, he has all these great performances in big games. If you take away the Georgia game, really, he's performed extremely well in big games. Georgia game was really about the only game where he didn't perform in. Now, here's the deal. Like you said, he has a chance to rewrite history against Georgia. If he goes in there and they rout or at least convincingly beat Georgia and get into that number 2 spot and then have a solidified. And if he goes in the playoffs and wins the national title, or at the very least, if he just performs lights out, even if they don't win, if he performs lights out throughout the playoffs, well, then his trajectory takes a twist. And I don't think Cam Ward, I don't think Shedeur Sanders, I don't think any of those guys, Newsmeyer, are going to get that top spot. It could very well go to Quinn Ewers, and he could get the number 1 spot based on how he performs against Georgia, based on how he performs in the playoffs. If he finishes it out strong and gets a national title, you got to tell the whole team went to Quinn Ewers. You got to think he's going to go at least in the top 5 at that point. So I think still his destiny is still not written. I think it's still in his hands, but he's got to handle business in Georgia, an SEC showdown, and he's got to handle business in the playoffs. That will determine ultimately, I think, where Quinn Ewers goes.
And we will see, and we're looking forward to seeing how this SEC championship game will shake out and how it will affect not just the draft stocks of Quinn Ewers, but for a lot of players on both sides. Because, look, we know a lot of these guys are going to be leaving their respective colleges after this season, heading on to the NFL. We've talked about a couple of them. We're going to continue talking about those guys here later on today. So, we get to see them at least for a little bit longer in their current colors, whether you're in Georgia, whether you're in Texas, or all across the NCAA. It's a fun time, though. We always love doing a lot of draft stuff here on the program, and we've got a lot more coming down the pipeline. As always, Jay McLovin, my guy from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, I thank you for coming on the show today and talking about your quarterback, Quinn Ewers, quarterback for Texas, for who knows how many more games we will see. It's going to be interesting to see how this all ends up. Guys, once again, if you enjoyed the episode, please like, follow, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we will talk to you again on another live episode.